If you want to drop 10 kilos before summer rolls around, this is the exact video for you, because I'm going to be breaking down everything that you need to know in order to make sure that you've dropped 10 kilos by the time you get to your summer holiday and you feel utterly incredible. Because let's not beat around the bush here. I know you've got that holiday booked in already. I know you've got the countdown on your phone. I know you're counting down how many weeks you've got left of work, and it's starting to feel like crunch time. There's a little bit of worry setting in, because you normally leave this thing to the last minute, because right now your schedule is absolutely bursting at the seams. Work is so chaotic and busy that your health and fitness just gets pushed to the bottom of the pile. So we're going to change that this year, and I'm going to be breaking down the exact methods that I use to get my client results just like these, so that you can do the exact same thing ready for summer. If you're new here, my name's Georgia. I'm a women's online health and fitness coach, and I work with powerhouse, high-performing women who are ready to step into their ultimate confidence across all areas of their lives without sacrificing their career progress in the process. The clients that work with me drop at least 10 kilos, build a strong athletic figure, and ultimately build a lifestyle where they can balance their work, personal and fitness in a way that works completely around them. Because the women I work with want to have it all. They want to be thriving in their career, they want to be able to hold down a social life, have their downtime, and have the body of their dreams, and this is where we make it happen. So my client started working with me last year, and she has since dropped 11 kilos, and I can't lie, literally looks like a whole new woman. She's officially the lightest she's been in years, and is fitting into jeans and clothes that she hasn't worn since COVID. Not only that, but whilst achieving these results, she's also been able to maintain her social life, go on multiple holidays, and juggle a busy and demanding career at the same time. We've very much made sure that we push when we can push, we pull back when we need to pull back, so that we can maintain her momentum and continue to see incredible results. She's actually currently, as I'm filming this, just under 7 weeks out from her first photo shoot as well, and she is already looking incredible. So like I said at the beginning, I'm here to break down all of the methods that we have used so that you can go and apply them too, and make sure that you are getting to summer looking and feeling the best that you ever have. So with that being said, let's get into the video. Now, the first thing I want you to do is set your deficit. The reason why I'm going in with this first is because I say this to all of my one-to-one clients: nutrition is the biggest mover when it comes to fat loss. If we were to think of this as a pyramid with 3 layers, the foundation layer, the most crucial layer to support our pyramid, and the biggest layer of the pyramid, that is your nutrition. Then we have the middle layer, which is a slightly smaller layer, and that is your NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, your daily movement, your steps, and things like that. Then at the top of the pyramid, the smallest proportion, and if you like, the cherry on top of the cake, that is your training. And the thing that most people get wrong is they actually look at this pyramid in reverse. They think that the training is the most important part, when in actual fact, that is more of an accessory. It's something that's obviously very important because it helps us to maintain muscle mass. And I'll get to that layer of the pyramid in a minute as well. But going back down to that foundation layer of the pyramid, your nutrition. The number one thing we need for fat loss is to make sure that we're in a calorie deficit. And this was the first point of call when I started working with my clients. So I'm going to give you a quick hack to calculate your calorie deficit without all the confusion that you see online. So I want you to set your body weight in pounds, and you can use Google to convert this if you need to. Once you've got that figure, you're going to times that by 10. That is your calorie deficit total to start with. So to give you an example, if you weighed 180 pounds currently, multiply that by 10, that gives you 1,800 calories for your daily total. Next up, we're moving up to the next layer of the pyramid. This is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or your steps. And also this is where we're going to look at your other habits. This is what I call building your baseline. Once we've got your nutrition in place, we want to build those other baseline habits around it to start promoting a healthy and positive lifestyle that's also going to support your weight loss as well as your mental health. So going in with your steps first, I want you to go to the Apple Health app on your iPhone, and I want you to look at your average steps over the last 7 days. Let's say, for example, they're 7,000. We're going to take that 7,000 and we're going to add 1,000 to 2,000 on top of that. So that gives you 8,000 to 9,000 steps. That is going to be your first baseline habit. And I want you to make sure that you're hitting these steps every single day of the week as much as possible. But also a really helpful metric to look at is that weekly step average, because the women in my world have days where they're literally stuck to their desk for 12 hours a day, or they might be traveling. And that means that steps are going to be near enough impossible on those days. So by looking at your step average at the end of each week, you can see whether you're still on track to hitting those targets without having the pressure of hitting that target every single day. So as a rule, you want to aim for it daily, but you can also lean into that average when you need to, which means that you can have days that are slightly lower, but therefore you also need to compensate with days that are above target to balance that out. And that's also something that I track weekly with my clients as well, and we monitor in their check-ins so that I can make sure that they're on the right track and seeing the progress that is right for them. Now, that second baseline habit that I mentioned is your water, and this is something that so many people sleep on. Your water intake is so crucial for weight management, salt balance, and also even things like your mental clarity and focus, which with all of my clients is super important to make sure that they're performing at their best during their working hours. As a general rule of thumb, you want to have at least a minimum of 2 litres of water per day. If you can push this up more towards 3 litres, especially if you are quite active, this is exactly where you want to be sitting. And something that I worked on with this client specifically is making sure that they start their day off with hitting at least 250 to 500 millilitres of water to make sure that they're getting a head start and they can stay on track throughout the rest of the day. Now we're going to move on to that top layer of the pyramid. Like I said, the cherry on top of the cake, that's chat training. Now with this client in particular, she wasn't already actively training in the gym in a way that was consistent. She was doing classes, so she had a baseline of fitness, but what we didn't have was a structure with her strength training behind her. So that is the first point of call that we hit when it came to her training, and this is exactly where I want you to focus as well. Resistance training is a number one priority for fat loss, and the reason being is because we want to be making sure that we are losing fat, not excessive muscle mass. With working with predominantly women, we are unfortunately predisposed to losing muscle mass as we age. And the same thing can happen with bone density, putting us at risk of things like osteoporosis when we are older. So for me, yes, I want you to get an incredible transformation when you work with me, but I also care about your health, well-being, long term. Plus, if you want to build that strong, toned, athletic figure, once we've completed that fat loss, you need to be strength training. So the first thing we did was get her a structure where she did not have to worry about what she was doing in the gym. It was completely mapped out for her. Now, as someone who wasn't actively strength training prior to this, we started with 3 sessions per week because that was what aligned with her schedule. This is a massive thing here. I want you to look at what availability you have to fit in those sessions and work around that. Rather than striving for, I'm going to do 5-6 sessions a week, when you realistically do not have time for that. So we started with 3 sessions and these were all full body. The reason why we went in with a full body split was to make sure that we weren't overworking any certain areas around her classes to complement these nicely, and also to ease her in to structured resistance training. If I was to go in and give her a really heavy leg day when she wasn't used to training in that way, she'd probably hate me for it, and her body would take a lot longer to recover, which is what we want to avoid. I speak to so many women who go, wow, I had the most amazing session, I couldn't walk for a week. That is not something we want to strive for. I want my clients to have optimal recovery so that they can bounce back well, feel good, and ultimately consistently perform at their best, rather than having one day where they go absolutely ham and then it taking them out for the rest of the week. So that's why we went in with a full body split initially, and like I said, 3 full body days. So if you are new to the gym, this is a really, really good place to start. It means that you can have a balance of upper and lower work and also push versus pull movements. Now fast forward a few months, having built up that structure and a really good baseline of strength, we have since tweaked her workout split to do an upper body, a lower body, and a full body day. So just something to note here is just because you start with one method, that doesn't mean you have to stick with it for the rest of your journey. Brings me really nicely onto my final point, and actually probably one of the most crucial points and something that I see so many women slip up with when it comes to their weight loss journeys, and that is your weekly assessment and progression. Now it's really easy to set yourself up with all of these things and then just rinse and repeat week on week. For the first few weeks or couple of months maybe, you'll see good progress if you set these metrics up in the correct way. However, then what happens is we see that weight stagnate. We see measurements stagnate, we see progress photos stop changing, and we hit that really frustrating plateau. This is where most people give up, and this is where I do all the thinking as a coach. So in her weekly check-ins, we would assess progress and adherence on a weekly basis to see A, were we moving in the right direction, and B, were the things that we were focusing on achievable for her. After the data from that assessment, I would then know whether we needed to progress or change anything. Now that could mean changing nutrition, steps, training, or cardio. And these are the main 4 levers that you can pull when you need to accelerate your fat loss. But it's equally about knowing when to push versus when to pull back and hold things as they are, because sometimes the scales can stagnate, and that will be for other reasons. For example, you might have had a meal out over the weekend, your stress levels might be high, your sleep might not have been where it should be, you may be due on your period, and so many other things. So it's knowing what data is an anomaly versus what we actually need to look at changing to make sure that we're pushing through this. If you are seeing something stagnate for a week or 2, look at the other data around it. Don't just look at the number on the scales being the same and assume that something's wrong and you have to change it. So if something's stagnated for 2 weeks, you've been ticking every box to the T, and like I said, with those external factors that can affect things like scale weight especially, they're not coming into play right now, that is your sign to make a change. But sometimes it is just a case of rinse and repeat, and the most important thing with this client is that I've been there for the whole process, so she doesn't have to do the thinking around that, because this can be the most fiddly part. And ultimately, something that I strongly believe is that we don't need to push harder than we need to push. If things are moving at the right pace, in the right direction, we don't need to eat less food. We don't need to do more cardio. It's my job to help you maximize your time and make this as achievable as possible rather than pushing you to extreme methods just for the sake of it. And that's what I see with so many programs out there, is that they have this one size fits all approach rather than actually tailoring it to you as an individual. And that's the biggest thing that makes my high performance fitness project different. It's built completely around you, your goals, your work, your restrictions, and the time that you have available. And equally keeping this continually adapted to make sure that as your life changes, this changes with it. So if you do want more information on how I get my clients results just like this, without them having to sacrifice their career in the process, then the link for my one-to-one coaching applications is down below this video. But like I said, if you follow this exact process, I can guarantee that you're going to drop 10 kilos by the time we hit summer. If you found this video helpful, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to my channel because I post content like this every single week. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and I will see you in the next video.